Hey everyone, welcome to Saturday Night Popcorn. This is Jason.
And this is Kai, and we have another great discussion for you today. The movie of the day is Akira. It's from 1988. It's not new. It's animated. Um, this month last month was French crime films. This month we decided to change it up and do something animated. Not really animated like we used to watch as a kid, but we're gonna have some good ones for everyone. And still
Yeah,
gonna give
not.
everyone a spoiler warning.
I feel like everyone believes like animated is like Pixar movies. Like yes,
Yeah,
Pixar and Toy Story are awesome, but like there's other animated movies out there,
I'm a big fan of The Incredibles, but yeah, we're not watching that for this.
right? But this one is a good one, and this was from 1988. You said right?
Yeah,
It was like
'88.
it would like the first comment I have in my notes. Which one did you watch? I had the option to watch the dubbed,
I watched
which
it dubbed.
is you watched the dubbed. I watched the
Yeah.
subtitle one,
Okay, I was being
and
lazy.
well,
I'll just
sort
be
of like
honest.
10 minutes in, I was like, "Fuck, I should have watched the dubbed."
Hmm.
but it was nice to hear the actual like Japanese kind of voice actors, and then like the subtitles under it and everything. But this one was a good one. I
Yeah.
really enjoyed this one.
The one thing I do want to touch on is I liked the beginning. I think you and I touched on it before we start recording, but when you see the explosion in the beginning, we both had the same reaction of like, are they trying to show World War II? But then they
Hmm.
show World War III, and then they show that the city reinvented itself, changed, become like, I don't even know, futuristic. But then they showed 2019. So I thought it was kind of cool to see in 1988 vision of what 2019 was going to
Is that
look
what
like.
it is?
Hmm.
That's hilarious. Well, yeah, because they become like Neo Tokyo, right? Like
Yeah.
new Tokyo, and it's funny how like a world war kind of ends the same way as like the second, and I visibly was like, oh shit, like this is like the end of like World War II and everything,
Yeah.
but yeah, it took you kind of off guard and stuff, but it kind of has the same kind of feeling where like they rebuild and it becomes like a cyberpunk
Hmm.
type of deal,
That's what I was looking for. Yeah.
yeah, and that's sort of like when I was like looking Akira up earlier just to kind of like put some stuff up on the social media. It was like immediately showed cyberpunk, and I was like, oh, this is kind of where kind of people have that vision where like you see newer cyberpunk, it's more like more gritty and everything, but this kind
Hmm.
of has that grittiness, but there's still a human aspect. No one's like, not everyone is like a cybernetic person and
Yeah.
everything. Like I think
Because
the
there's
one
only
time,
one in this
yeah,
one,
he
and that
like
was because
made an
his arm
arm
got
and stuff.
chopped off. Yeah.
So yeah, that's what everyone kind of expects with cyberpunk, where it's like, oh, like everyone's like a robot and all this stuff, but like no, like it's just
There's still people.
yeah, it's just all the people kind of walking around and their get up, their kind of like dress and everything, like the different biker gangs have their own kind of like
Yeah.
flavor of the month kind of dress and
Which
all
I
this stuff.
really liked. There's
Me
one
too.
thing I saw it on the internet somewhere, but Kanye West was heavily inspired by this film.
Oh,
So
interesting.
if you watch the music video for Stronger, there's a moment where he's on is it like a CT scanner? Almost like a CT scanner, and he's in the air, and you watch as he's like being scanned in the film in
Like the
Akira.
kid.
Yeah, and then in Stronger that he does the same thing. And then after his scan, he's like walking down like a green hallway, and he has a bandage on his head in the film, and he took that and put that into the Stronger music video also. And then a lot of his style is inspired by Canada, like the all red outfit. He did that for the Donda. The heck is that called? The Donda listening parties, and there was like a couple other outfits from the film that he referenced.
Yeah, like you can kind of see where his like fashion influence
Hmm.
was started, where it's like even like the Kanye Yeezy brand, sort of like the Japanese kind of like cyberpunk has like more
Yeah,
like a puffiness to things, and stuff is like rounded. Um, yeah, you can kind of see where he kind of got the influence from this, and it's kind of interesting to see where it's like he would be that prime person to be seen it as a young person.
Hmm.
Coming out in 1988, I think he's like what, he's like 15 years older than us, and
Something
so
like that. Yeah, he's like
something
in his
like that.
mid to late 40s.
Yeah, so he's kind of like at that point where he's like he would be old enough to then remember and have an impact
Yeah,
from it and stuff. And we all kind of believe that like when we're kids, we're impacted by the movies, but like we're just watching everything, whatever.
Small Soldiers is mine.
So, I know, yeah, that's actually one that people forget about.
uh,
That was really good. But yeah, like when you're like a teenager, I think is like when movies like really start to impact you. It's like
yeah,
they start to change your fashion. They start to change like the way you interact with others and stuff. Like maybe that's why some people go into like a punk phase or like kind of a rebellious phase because like they see it in a movie and it's like, hey, well, I want to try
hmm,
that out.
like that person looks cool in that outfit. I'm gonna try it.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know. I was like really shocked by this movie, and I was like, at first, I was like daunted by like the 2 hours and like 4 minutes. I was like, man, this is gonna be
It
long.
flew by though.
Yeah,
Like it didn't feel. We talk about it all the time when we watch these longer films, but it didn't feel like 2 hours. Like it feels like they had a place for every moment.
and you're like anticipating. You're like kind of like you're there. Like I want to know what happens next. Like
Hmm.
as he because like you did not believe like towards the end when he starts to like become this like large
Oh yeah,
blob, and you're like, what the hell is going on?
that
And
like
then
some
they
South
like
Park stuff.
yeah, and I was like, I don't know, because like that when he started like transforming into that blob, it reminded me of Resident Evil, where like the
Oh,
villain always kind of like
it's
gets
like a cyborg
progressively
of
worse and
multiple.
worse and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I was like, man, did like the Resident Evil kind of like group kind of figure this out? Like, I don't know, with them and everything has some influence, but there's always like a thing to kind of keep you going with
Hmm.
this movie. And because a 2 hour runtime seems like a long time, especially for an animated movie, but
Yeah.
I think this movie would be difficult to make in a live action. I think you would ruin it, sort
I
of.
don't. Yeah, I don't think they should. I think leave it exactly how it is. I don't understand like the intricacies of the animation. How long it took them to actually create this film. That blew my mind.
I would like to know. I would like to know how long, how many people worked on it. Like,
Yeah.
you can assume that they're like very dedicated and to have that art style. I think that's the thing that kind of comes to you at first, where it's like
Hmm.
it's not an animated movie, is what you, but so to speak, people kind of assume Pixar, like oh, animated movies, like they're more like a cartoonish look to everybody and everything.
Hmm.
Where these individuals had like their style, their own
Yeah.
look and everything, and their own body type. Like I just like thinking about the Colonel, he just like had like the wide
It's
shoulders and like he just
huge.
looked like
Yeah.
a big old ball just kind of moving around. Or the crazy doctor. Like he looked
Oh.
like a crazy like I'm just gonna like figure out I need to know what is going on.
Hmm.
And like he lives up to that where it's like he's just gonna push and push and doesn't care what happens afterward because like
Even
he can
the
figure
the
it out.
experiments, the kids, they were green. Like that threw me off.
I had no clue. I was like, when towards the beginning, when they're like, when the one guy's like kind of
Oh, trying to get
shepherding
the kid away.
the
Yeah.
little kid, I was like, is this like a little zombie kid? Like, is this?
Like where did he find this?
Yeah,
There
it's like,
was there was something. I think you might. I'm assuming you looked at the film the same way I did, but it reminded me of Stranger Things.
hmm.
Like
I
with
didn't think about
the
that actually.
yeah, it's like a house full of experiments, and they all have numbers.
And one gets out,
One gets out.
or one is like the most powerful, right? Like it's
Hmm.
exponentially more powerful than the others.
And then another one is created to potentially stop that one, which is like
Interesting.
Vecna and 11.
Yeah,
And there was something else. But as I'm watching, I was like, dang, this reminds me of Stranger Things.
yeah. Actually, when you think about it, when you bring it up, it's like it. you see some similarities, like the number system, where like
Hmm.
this one they have it on their hands,
Yeah.
and they're up to like a big number too. And then I think 11 is not the last one in the
Hmm.
whole like line of things. And Vecna is what, number one,
Vector's
right?
number one. Hmm.
Yeah. So
And
and then
Akira was
there's
number one in this one, or
yeah, we're
possibly number
assuming
one.
that or is like the one that like is everyone's scared about.
Yeah.
And same thing with Stranger. I did not think about that. That's actually really cool. I wonder if like the people that created Stranger Things, like, did you have influence from Akira?
They said they were they heavily referenced the '80s, so possibly. I wouldn't be
Maybe that's
surprised. I
true
would
because
take from
yeah,
that. This movie was amazing.
yeah, no, that's make me think about
Now you're gonna rewatch it.
that.
You're gonna rewatch the dub version.
I know, just so I can casually listen to it. I don't know. In terms of the story, like do you think it's like the art style that kind of like makes the story more impactful, or is it like everything all together? Like I was just kind of shocked how everything kind of worked.
I think they worked hand in hand. Like I think if the art style wasn't as good as it is, I don't think we would as many people would talk about this film as they do. I think they have to like simultaneously work.
I think so too, because it's also like a very mature style too,
Yeah.
because like it's gory. There's some like in like moments where
You
you're
know,
like, oh, this
they
is kind of
shot
like hard to
multiple
watch.
dogs. I was just waiting
Right?
for John Wick to come out. Like, oof.
Yeah, and it's like, and there's like a psychological aspect where, like, I remember the scene in when like the I forget what the kid's name is, the one that's like getting all the powers, like he's in the
Mhm.
hospital bed, and like the the little like teddy bear like wakes up,
Oh
and they're
yeah,
tiny, but then they turn into like this big thing, and it's like,
yes.
man, what is going on? And Patty's like next to me, she's like, what is going on?
He had the worst nightmares. Like the bear morphing in, or the stuffed animals morphing into one big bear chasing him, and yeah, I would have been out. Just take me out
Yeah,
of my misery.
there's it's very complex, and I think
Hmm.
what's intriguing to it is that it's not childlike, it's not, but I don't know, it's like no matter what, it's
This is
like I think
for
it's,
adults for sure.
yeah, this one's made for, yeah, there's like
Yeah,
nudity in it too, where it's like
yeah.
you kind of have to
Which
like,
surprised, I was like, what?
yeah, I was like,
That
like that's,
wasn't necessary.
and it like doesn't make sense too, like it
Yeah,
makes sense in the scene, but it's like, yeah,
like it
none
didn't
of
have to go
it,
that
like
far
the
though.
rest of the movie doesn't have it,
Yeah.
yeah.
Like, hey, let's just
but
throw this in here real quick.
but I think what's like so appealing to it is like I don't know, I think that's like what the whole concept of like anime
Hmm.
is that, yeah, you take an art style, like it's almost like comic books. Comic books are not always necessarily like made for children. I've
Yeah.
seen some comic books that are like, man, you're like, a lot of people are dying in this thing.
I had a Batman comic as a kid and that I should not have had.
Yeah.
I had like a
Yeah,
page marked because I was like, yeah, this is that page.
yeah, we look back on like where The Walking Dead came from, so it's like a
Hmm.
graphic novel, but you can
The
kind of have
boys.
more, the
Yeah.
boys, yeah, you can have more complex and more mature kind of storylines, but also make it in this like art style that like is pleasing to everybody. And I think
Yeah.
anybody would kind of like find this as like, oh, this is like a beautiful looking movie, I think.
Yeah.
So I was shocked by that. But do you find anything that's like wrong with this movie? That's what I was kind of like when I
No.
was done with it. I was trying to
Yeah.
find out like what is wrong with this movie. I'm still confused by the story, and I
I
think,
yeah, I was gonna say that's my only gripe is like there were a lot of characters like you were thrown into the world, which was nice, but there were just pieces that were kind of tossed in, and you were like, I don't understand how this fits or how this is coming about. So there were some moments of that, but that's so minor.
yeah, like the little pieces that I remember, or like afterwards when it was done, it was like, what was the scientist like looking at, like that whole like bouncing kind of sound thing?
Oh
Like
yeah,
what was that and everything? And they were trying to overlay Akira's on top of it, and
mm-hmm.
that was going to be
It looked like
sort of,
Biodome.
yeah. I was like, I don't know what is going on with that, and it really doesn't answer it because they kill the guy, the
Yeah,
scientist. And then the ending, you're like, where did they go? Like, did they
It
just
seemed
like,
like there was going to be a second one, but I was like, there should never be a second one. Just keep this one.
or like it do the books? Is like, is this based off like a book and everything? Because
That's
like
true.
immediately Patty and I were like, I would watch a TV series that continued on with this, or
That would be cool.
read something that like continued on with this, because it's like I wouldn't. I think that's like what's so surprising with me with this movie is that you want more.
Hmm.
You're like asking for more because they like put these answers out there, but then also more questions, and you're like,
Yeah.
I need those answers.
Like, let's rewind the tape. Give me these answers, please.
Yeah, it was a very enjoyable movie, and I think that's like the story just kind of being like I was confused by like what's coming next, and I think that's where kind of where I find it. But there's like no problem with the art style. There's no
No.
problem with like I don't know. Like you look, I think you have to look at like animated movies in a different light because like unless there's like things wrong with animation, like I feel like it's
Yeah.
like difficult to spend so much time on an animated movie and get something wrong. Like I don't know where
Yeah.
you're like the hand has like 5 finger or like 6 fingers or something or like an extra finger. Like
Like,
that
there's,
seems
it's
odd to have.
difficult. It's difficult to mess up the continuity of an animated film because you're drawing every single frame and you have a reference to your last frame. Like with
Yeah,
a movie, it's real people, so somebody may shift over a little bit, or like, oh, I need a glass of water right now, and put the glass and forget about it. But animated, it's like, oh, I'm looking at every single piece, every single frame going through, so it's difficult to mess that up. At least
yeah,
in my eyes, I've never created an animated film, so I don't
yeah.
know for
We
sure.
we we don't do any movies. We watch
Yeah,
them.
yeah.
But yeah, that's why I was hard pressed to find something that was wrong with the movie,
Hmm.
and I think for me it was just the story. Um, but it's more like I want more answers than anything.
Yeah.
Uh, for me, like immediately I kind of like saw it as like it was like Mad Max, but with motorcycles,
Mm,
more motorcycles, because it was like the gangs, the motorcycle
yeah.
gangs, kind of fighting against each other and stuff.
I didn't even think about that one. That
It,
is, yeah, it's a lot like Mad Max.
yeah, because it's like the first Mad Max, like because Mad Max ended up turning into like a crazy story
Mm,
after the first one, but the first Road Warrior, where it's like he's still in like a police car. There's still civilization that kind of like is existing around it, but but then there's like the little like bits that kind of like are kind of going south and everything, and so like there's like that like little bits that it's gonna like start to like progress towards what it turns into.
yeah.
And this sort of like it's similar because like there's a lot of distress, there's a lot of like turmoil in the city, and it's there's a lot of people fighting each other, but then there's like this other storyline that there's like this supernatural or like this power
Yeah.
thing that kind of gets you enthralled into the story.
There's so many things going on. Like, goodness, yeah, I did not even. Yeah, there were so many things going on.
That's
But
sort of that's what came to mind when I like first started watching the movie. It was like this is like Mad Max.
and mine was Stranger Things. Like,
Yeah,
oh,
I know,
it's Stranger Things.
right?
Oh, it was. I think my favorite moment in the film was when they were talking to that 25-year-old cop.
Oh,
That I was not like in a comedy, like a live action comedy. I would expect something like that. I would expect like a well-known comedian just to start clowning on a cop that looked that old. But to have that in an animated film, I was like, this is hilarious. I love that part.
yeah, like little breaks in the action,
Yeah.
and I think that's what also you talk about pacing. I think that's what's also good about this movie is that like you see little aspects where like they come out of their school and like their girlfriends show up and like
Mm,
they're all kind of having like these like distinct conversations with each other. Like one's bickering with his other girlfriend and stuff, and like they're all kind of just going around. But then they also have this like overarching thing that like one of their friends is gone. So it's like life kind of still happens while you're still trying to figure out other things
yeah.
going on. So like the pacing is unique with that where like they have like times where like they're walking around and having more casual conversations, and then it turns into like a something blows up, Like I remember they're like they're like waiting on like this bridge, and they're just kind of hanging out, and then I don't know where something blows up in like the
Oh
little
yeah, in the
shopping center.
distance.
It's like yeah,
Yeah.
so it's like stuff like that where it's like you think it's a little peaceful moment, but then it turns into chaos,
Hmm.
and then everything kind of goes around or goes south.
But that keeps you on your. I like when movies do that because it keeps you on your toes. Like instead of just having a through line of like, okay, we're watching as this person's walking down the street. Ooh, they made it to the street corner. Like
Right.
I want to see just a random car just drive up and almost hit them, or like somebody bump into them as they're walking down the street. Give me
Yeah, some
something
action.
different. Yeah.
What would you end up rating the movie?
I I'm going to change it. I know I don't. We don't typically change it. I gave it a. I put a 3.5, but I should have put a 4 because I truly enjoyed it.
Yeah, like I think if the ending was a little more, I don't know, I think I did not like feel too much. Like I was like enthralled with the story and all
Hmm.
this, and enthralled with the art style, but the ending was like, oh, okay, well, like I
Yep.
wanted more, but it wasn't like a purely impactful movie to me or like ending to me. So I ended up giving it a 4.5. And I was like going based off like, all right, I'm gonna go like maybe I was like really thinking about a 4,
Hmm.
and then I was like, all right, I really like 4.5 and stuff, but like if like you look at like a 5, and it's like, all right, like was I feeling the same thing as I felt with the end of The Godfather? Like, did it have that like closing of the door, and like you're like, oh crap,
It
and I didn't
did
have
not.
that,
Yeah,
so
no, it did
it was
not.
like, yeah, like it's a very good movie. It's yeah, it's a very interesting movie. I
And it
kind of
didn't make
wonder
you
like,
cry like Barbie did.
no, it didn't. Or like In the Mood for Love, like.
Oh yeah. I forgot you gave
But
that one a 5 too.
I know I was like, man, I love that movie. But in terms of like recommending this, I'm assuming we both will recommend this. But
Yeah,
who comes to mind when you recommend this movie too?
I think anybody that likes action, I because we all watch Pixar films. Like anybody that watches movies has seen at least one Pixar film, and if they're into that, this is animation. Also, this is older animation, but it's very stylized.
Hmm.
So I think having the action, having the animation style, I think anybody would watch this. Just don't tell them it's 2 hours.
Yeah, right. Yeah, because I'm thinking like, how do I sell this to my? I think if I say tell my mom to watch something, she'll watch
Mhm.
it, but whether or not she will like be watching it all the time, like the entire time.
Yeah,
I'm like wondering, it's like, will my dad be taken back by like the art style? Like, oh, it's an animated movie. It's like that's not like what I'm looking for. But it's different because
mhm.
it's very mature. Like my brothers,
You
I
already
can
know they're watching it for
yeah,
sure
I can recommend it
if they
to
haven't already.
yeah, my Patty's siblings and stuff. Like I can definitely say, but it's like because like they're around the same age as us.
Hmm.
But I can see some people in my family, like the older adults, some of them will. Like you kind of like know based off their personality, like are
Yeah,
they looking for something different? Are they looking for something like do they enjoy action movies like these, and are not taken back by like, oh, like I'm watching a kids thing because it's animated. Like
no, but within the first 5 minutes, they're gonna be like, "Oh, this is not a kids
right.
movie,"
This is totally different.
and they may lock in like, "Okay, I'm watching this. It's good."
Are you buying this movie?
I would, yeah, I would buy this for sure.
I know.
This was good.
I'm thinking about like I want to buy like a movie poster or something. Like I think the movie poster is like synonymous too, or like you kind of can see it and you're like, oh, now you can instantly recognize it. Like, oh, that's
Yeah,
Akira. That's a very good movie.
yeah,
So I think definitely I will be buying this movie and recommending it to as
yeah.
much people, as many people I can. It's a definite watch for us. Like
Hmm.
2 hours is will go by
It's
fairly
a quick,
quickly. I think
quick two
it's not
hours.
gonna feel like Stalker where it's like 2 hours or three
Oh
hours. Like it
goodness,
feels like it.
yeah.
This one goes by pretty quickly. What do we usually say? I kind of forgot.
That's where we ended.
Oh, okay. All right, Kyle, you want to take us out?
Yeah. Thanks for joining us for another episode of Saturday Night Popcorn. I'm Kai,
And I'm Jason, and we'll be back next week for another one.
without the rust.
Yeah.